All right, top of the hour. Welcome everybody to our second session of our 2020 Summer Bootcamp. Again, welcome everybody. We're glad to have you on board today, and we're going to be shaking things up a little bit. Those of you that attended last week, in the interest of respecting your busy schedules and time, we've got a little bit of a plan to make these go a little more quickly and to get all that information there to you and let you get on with your day. And I know you're super busy taking care of your community. So with that, we're going to make these shorter, sweeter, and stronger, and that's the plan. That's the plan for today's session. So it may seem like I'm going quicker than usual, but it's the intent is to get a little faster pace and to get you out of here within the half hour. So we're looking at about a 20-minute presentation, 10 minutes of questions, and we're going to hit a pretty important topic today. But before we do that, a couple shout outs to some names that I see that join us regularly. We've got, let's see here, Sean Sims out in Pennsylvania. Sean is very active in our community on the Customer Success Center and always has a lot of great insights. So thanks for being here, Sean. And I see Byron Sutton also was with us. Yep, he is with us. And so, and to everyone else, thanks for being here. And we're going to launch it off like we usually do with a couple poll questions. First off, what kind of agency do you work for? I know I ask this every time and you're probably like, I'm sick of answering this, but there's always new people joining us and we always like to get a good feel on who's participating. And you guys are quick today too in responding. All right. All right, we're gonna close the poll in 3, 2, 1. Let's see what we got. All right, a nice mix today. All right, career, volunteer, and combo, a little heavier on the combination side today. Excellent. Thank you guys. Coming up again, are you interested in joining the ER family or your current ER customer? And this will help drive some of the content later on. You guys are rocking it today, fast. Okay. Oh, good. We have at least a couple people that are new. All right. Here's the results. So again, vast majority of you are customers, and I thank you for that. And those of you that are not, hopefully this will give you a little insight into our Hydrants module and how we help you adhere to NFPA 291 today. It's just one part of our system we're going to cover. All right, now we got more topic-specific questions that I want to ask you. We'll get the polls out of the way right out of the gate here. Okay, so do you adhere to NFPA 291 when testing and marking hydrants? Yes, no, sorta, or what's NFPA 291? Guys are rocking it, closing the poll in 3, 2, and 1. Last shot. Take a look up at your screen if you're multitasking, and we've got yes, and that's okay. You know what, sort of. I expected that because you know what NFPA 291 is. And thankfully, when we get into the standard here, you'll see it's not a really complex, other than the math, but don't stress about that. And it's not a long standard. So it's going to serve as a good guide, especially if either any of you that are participating today are responsible for tracking and updating your water supply in your jurisdiction, or you're kind of here because you're an ER pro and you can share this information with the person who is responsible for it in your department. Okay, last one. Who flow tests hydrants in your community? Is it you guys, the fire department, the water department, public works, or other municipal agency, or we just don't flow test hydrants? Okay, awesome participation. Closing in 3, 2, 1. Interesting. Okay, so one thing I want to mention right now, Sean, I hope you don't mind me sharing this. The water department claims they flow test, but we never see the data. So that actually goes along with the comment I'm just about to make here. All right, so depending on the relationship, say, and so in this case, it's almost 50-50, right? A little skew towards your public works or water department. So what I would like to suggest, if you have a relationship established with your water company or your public works department, I would strongly suggest reaching out to them, showing them the emergency reporting hydrants module, and ascertain if this could be a potential platform for them to either A, import data to when they conduct flow testings, or two, co-manage your water supply so that both agencies are on the same page. Now, I know there could be potential politics and work rules and things that could potentially preclude this, but I know I have seen many departments out there that do this, and so they grant the water company access to just the hydrants module. So on the module button stack in your system, it'll just show hydrants, and maybe the daily log, probably not, just the hydrants is all they really need, right? And so that allows both you and the water department to be on the same page. And because the system's so easy to use, a lot of times the water company is like, hey, this is kind of cool, we can do this. So it's worth considering. You know your relationships and the politics and all that goes along with that in your communities, but definitely consider doing that. All right, gonna close this poll, pressing on. If there's any audio or video issues, guys, just be sure to write that in the questions, and I'll rectify it as quickly as possible, but I think we're really good to go today. Okay, that's me. Those of you who've been with us before know a little bit about who I am. So in a nutshell, 22 years in the fire service in Southern Arizona, been using ER since 2004, been with the company since 2011, traveling the world as a trainer, and then was promoted recently, well, a couple of years now, 2-year anniversary, as a business development analyst, where I serve as a subject matter expert for our sales and business development team, as well as a key account manager. For those of you that are new to the emergency reporting family, I want you to just take a look at this slide and see a little bit about what we do. So some highlights here. In the interest of time, some highlights. We have a 99.9% uptime and reliability, which means we're rarely, if ever, down. And there is if you go to the Customer Success Center up in the upper right corner, there's a button that says System Status or Status. That will show you the status of our site in real time. All of our support is US based. So we've got our support team that is based in the Bellingham, Washington area. They are working from their homes currently, but normally they are in the office and collaborating and working hard to serve you. So you are getting US based support, support that you can, people that you'll be able to understand and can reach. We can have 24-hour support for critical items that's monitored, and then we have people in the office every weekday from 0630 to 1700 Pacific time. And then we support agency compliance with many standards. We've helped agencies improve their ISO score, and I say they do it. We just provide a tool, right? We provide the data management tool, and they're successful in getting their ISO PPC score improved. Accreditation, about 23% of all accredited agencies use emergency reporting. NFPA standards, local, state, and federal standards. And then we're very proud to be able to serve the entire United States Marine Corps and the United States Army. We're well over 7,100 departments now. This is about a month or so old, 36 million reports in the system. And since our inception, we've served, or I should say, we've had entered into our system over 750,000 personnel. So today's objective, how can I better manage the water supply in my response area so that I can enhance the safety of my crews and community? Because at the end of the day, that's what our water supply does. Yes, we'll protect lives, lives and property, and all of that as far as our core mission for sure. But at the end of the day, it's about keeping people safe and getting water on the fire as quickly and as safely as possible. That's standard. So that's NFPA 291. All right, recommended practice for fire flow testing and marking of hydrants. I'm going to pull down some screenshots from the actual standard to just kind of illustrate to you some things that, one, you're probably already doing, or two, you can certainly consider doing in the near future. The nice thing about this standard, so those of you that are like me that like lots of pictures in our books and come from the fire service and stuff, you don't be intimidated by the NFPA standards. Every NFPA standard is an elephant that you just eat one paragraph at a time, one bite at a time, right? And so thankfully, this is a really good one because it's short. It's 18 pages. And some of it are definitions and reference publications and explanatory materials. So 2 chapters, 4 and 5, are the meat and potatoes of the standard. And it is very easy to understand. And so if you do not have NFPA standards in your library or quick access to them, talk to your chief, because this will help you adhere to, again, national, arguably international standards, and will help guide you when you have questions on what it takes to do an effective water supply program. And that, this is, we're talking 291 today, but the other standards we've all familiar with, 1500 and so forth, there's many of them. But if you are responsible for developing any kind of program in your department, whether it's PPE, fleet maintenance, or in this case, today's case, water supply, chances are there's an NFPA standard to help you with it. So please take advantage of it. I'll go to it quickly when we go to the web browser here. And thankfully, you can view them for free. If you want to download them, print them out and all that, of course, you've got to be a member of NFPA and pay for them, but at least you can view them for free. And so that's a good jumping point for anybody. So we adhere to a lot of it, right? So if you look on the left, that's a diagram directly out of the standard. And then if you've ever done a flow test in our system, with the friction coefficient, you can pick the correct discharge and it will automatically calculate your coefficients. Now we don't put the little numbers below it, but whatever you pick here throws down that coefficient in the math formula that gets calculated behind the scenes and gives you your flow rate. Okay, a couple things here that I want to mention. The data sheet, right? So you've got the data sheet that they mentioned in 411.2. Well, a lot of this is going to be just captured on your tablet or on your phone if you're out there doing hydrants. Certainly you can write it down and then transfer it later, but if you can, reduce duplication of effort, get it knocked out in the system while you're out doing it. Next slide is the back of the form should include a location sketch, right? Well, sure, you could draw it, and that's certainly appropriate, but with the technology we have, including what's in emergency reporting, take a picture of the area. That's always kind of nice to have and upload into the hydrant data set. But then one of our features is if you're out and about and you got the lat long of the hydrant, which the lat longs matter more than the address. But in order to have that lat long correspond with an address to fill the data points, if you choose to do so, when there's an address, available or related to that hydrant, you go out on your tablet or anything or your phone that has your location services enabled. It'll look based on your lat long on the closest addresses and say, which one do I want to populate? And so if one, you're adding new hydrants or flow testing hydrants to begin with, you can do it. Or two, if you're out and about and say you've imported just lat longs and you're out and about testing them and there's not an address associated with it, don't type it, go here and pick the correct location and it will autofill all of these fields into the hydrant address. And again, we know that address is less important than the lat long when it comes to hydrants, but this will fill in some data points for you. And our team put this together as kind of one of their, they get to do their own creative sprints in our system, in our development process to add something new to our system. And they did that, this was about at least a year or so ago. So I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but check it out sometime, okay? I'll show it to you when we get into the system. Marking of hydrants, okay. So I didn't know this. For rapid identification, and it has recommended that the capacity colors be a reflective type paint. I know that's usually more costly, and I've yet to see a community that invests in it. We do invest in the hydrant markers, those blue markers that you see on the roadways. And then of course, hydrants rated at less than 20 PSI should have the rated pressure stenciled in black on the hydrant top. I know my jurisdiction did not do this. However, there could be a lot of value here, especially when you show up on the scene. It's not out of service, but that benchmark desired pressure is not being met. So just some tips that as I studied this standard that I thought I'd pass along to you. And then of course on the right here, you can see how we color code hydrants on the map. All right, so when private hydrants are located on public streets, they should be painted red or another color to distinguish them from public hydrants. I'll show you that. But the blue here is what the picture represents. Temporarily inoperative hydrants. They should be, if they're unusable, they should be wrapped or otherwise provided with some kind of indicator of their condition. And again, think you respond, and hopefully you've done good shift change pass down, and using our system, you can see where those out of service hydrants are located. This is from one of our customers that I always brag about because their data is so good, and they've let me share this information with all of you. So when I navigate in their account, this is Orange County, Florida, we've got an out of service hydrant indicated with the black X, and I went to Street View, and so Google plots the icon for their lat long here, and then the actual hydrants right there in the picture. So I know that the quality of their data is fantastic. And if I go to really 99% of their hydrants, this is what I see, the icon right next to the hydrant itself. And so again, one thing that they might consider, again, maybe they've already done it. This picture's old, right? You know, Google doesn't always have the most updated images. And so is there something on this hydrant if I drove by that would indicate that it's out of service? And more importantly, because it's been documented in emergency reporting, have I passed that along at shift change to the crews so that we're on the same page that, hey, this hydrant's in our first due. If we have a fire in this area, we might need to call in a tender or make sure we have an alternative water supply. So private hydrants. So private hydrants at the owner's discretion, but if they're on public streets, they should be painted red or some other color to distinguish them from public hydrants. And I just randomly went into an account and you can see that last hydrant wasn't flow tested, so it was yellow. This one was, and so it corresponds with, it has the corresponding color. But this one, I filtered their grid to show just private hydrants, then went to street view on a random hydrant, and lo and behold, it's red. They do a killer job. So that's, again, just an example of how adhering to NFPA 291 by using our system, you know, can just make your lives easier and really more importantly, safer for everybody. All right, again, it's 18 pages dedicated to making the water supply management easier for all of you. And so let's jump into the system. And again, like I said, I want to respect your time and make sure we get you in and out of here in a half an hour. So we don't have much time. So bear with me as we go into the system, and then we'll open it up for some questions. Okay, so here we are. And as we navigate over to, let me find it, there we go, hydrants. All right, you've got the data set for the page. And what I wanted to show you, what I had mentioned earlier, this is all pretty straightforward, right? This toggles your in and out of service status, even though, okay, I'll show you at another page where you can do the status. This one triggers the grid, whether it's in and out of service. Remember where I showed you on your phone, if you've got a GPS enabled device, you can fill from the current location. Now it's gonna ask me for the location. I don't have it set up. Even if I say allow, it can't find it because of how my system's set up right now. But that's how you would then allow the auto population of the address itself in the event you're updating your data or you've imported hydrants and just imported them by lat and log. On the flow tests, a couple key takeaways here. All right, the desired pressure is typically 20. Now, the math behind all this, I'll show you in our knowledge base article, the math that's going on, but it adheres to the formulas that's expected. And when you see the formula, it's like, oh man, I gotta go think back to school when I had these, you know, classes where square roots and all that. It's not that hard if you look at it, but thankfully the system calculates it for you. Here's where you do the flow coefficient and pick the correct one, and it will automatically fill in the coefficient. And so you've got your static pressure, residual, your desired pressure is 20, okay? Now, if it's greater than that, you can enter it, but the desired is 20, and remember, less than, you know, requires that NFPA says you've got to put it in stencil on the top of the hydrant, okay? And then whether it passed or failed, okay? And then it's here where the flow calculated drives the color of the hydrant. All right, so if I look at this, a 1000 GPM hydrant, okay, 1074 GPMs, and go back to, whoops, stay on the page, and we're gonna go back to, okay, this hydrant, the lat long. Now, one thing you'll probably notice is the hydrant icon doesn't appear when you go into the single view. However, on this hydrant number 1 on Harrison 15th, let me just get it to, okay, so Harrison 15th, when we go back to the main grid, and I'm gonna do this smart so I don't have to worry about, okay, so now we're gonna go to map view, take out the stations. Okay, So you can see that the hydrants are color coded here. Now the yellow ones haven't been tested and the blue one has. Okay, questions on that? Okay, now what I want to direct you to is you've got all of the flow tests that you've done in this main grid, and so you can filter by hydrant, and so you can see that particular hydrant, we've done 2 flow tests. And by the way, NFPA 291 says they should be flow tested every 5 years. You've got your pressures, you've got your available flow, and who tested it. And this can be CSV downloaded. And then the other key thing that I want to mention about the hydrants module here before we jump into questions, okay, is that both, and then this is for those of you that aren't familiar with emergency reporting that are joining us maybe for the first time, you are able to, when you become a new customer, and we'll help you with it, import your hydrant data. So if you have a data set from either an existing RMS or from your water company, that can be imported, as can historical flow tests. Now, not all of our imports are customer facing. So these are all the ones available for our support tech. You have NFIRS, hydrants, hydrant flow test, and equipment. So once you've got it down, and it is pretty straightforward, you can start bringing in your own hydrants. And then a question we often get asked is, well, what if the water company updates this every, say, year or two, and they make corrections to any of this data set? Now, this isn't the flow test part, this is the data set, okay? Do I have to go in and manually change them all? No, as long as the hydrant ID is the same, take whatever spreadsheet that they may provide you, whatever CSV or Excel file that they could potentially provide you, and just re-import the data, and it will update any changed data points. So then you will have a brand new set of data that is current and will be brought into the system very quickly through an import, right? Likewise for flow tests. Those of you that said maybe your water company does flow tests, if you grant them access to emergency reporting, they can go in and import their flow test. Or let's just say they don't want to do that, they can send you the flow test results and you can import them. And those are customer facing imports. All right, so let's take some questions. We're doing pretty good. It's hard to cover this stuff in a short amount of time. And so now I want to jump into any questions that you all might have, or any ideas that you've used the system for to enhance your management of your water supply and adhere to NFPA 291. Oh, one other thing I need to mention. Here I go, right? Here's that account I talked to you about. In the settings, you get to create these drop downs. You can use static sources here. Now, you're not going to flow test them, but agencies do, and I recommend that you also consider adding any static water supplies. Yes, the icon will still be a hydrant, but you'll know by filtering it that this is a water tank, okay? This is not a hydrant, but you can still capture it as a potential water supply. And so I just wanted to mention that. So without further ado, let's hit some questions. Byron asks, if I find a new installed hydrant and I don't know if the guys have added it to the system, using my iPad, how can I determine if that hydrant is in the system and marked on the map if I have the mapping added? Okay, so let me make sure I understand the question. So again, if I find a new installed hydrant, so the physical hydrant, I don't know if the guys have added it to the system. Using my iPad, how can I determine if that hydrant is in the system? Okay, so my recommendation would be, depending on if you know any of the data points of that hydrant, so its ID number, okay, if anything was entered, all right, its address and or a more descriptive location, you could do that, but you can also do this in advanced search. Now, you can go in here, and if you have any additional data about the hydrant, you can filter the results to try and find it that way. You can also, if say it might have been in there, but it might not have the lat long, you could check this box, run the hydrant search, and it will show you anything with an invalid or no lat long, and they have a lat long for everything here, which is crazy, considering that they have how many hydrants in their account? Like I said, they're on the ball here. 25,000 hydrants, and every one of them has a lat long. I hope that answers your question, Byron. So that's the key, is to hopefully, if a hydrant has been entered into the system, there is some data point that is searchable that will help you find it to confirm that it's in the system. And then if you can't find it in the system, chances are it's not. The best thing is this ID field. It just is the fastest way to find it, because each hydrant has to have a unique ID. Sure, by the road name, by the, you don't have to put an address in here because they're not all required fields. If it's in an intersection, or if it's, they're not tied to an address, you can certainly search by that, or if someone has put it in the location description, which in this case they have. So they talk about, this is the address it's associated with, 2485 West Highland Avenue. It's on the southwest corner of West Highland and Lake in the intersection. So for a more descriptive location position of the hydrant. Okay, you're welcome, Byron. I hope that helps. Okay, so can you go over flow calculated versus volume at desired pressure? Okay, so I think I know what you're asking here on the flow test. So let's look at one. You can see who tested it. They even document City of Popka. You've got some private companies doing flow testing, and they get that information and get it entered into the system. They've got a great process for this. Okay, so hopefully this helps, Andrew, as I go over it. So going over flow calculated versus volume at desired pressure. I think the best thing for me to do, so I get it right for you, is going here. Oops, I had it up. Hang on one second. Hey, where'd it go? Hold on. We're going to go there real quick here. I hope this is what you were looking for. And while I'm going to this article, guys, if you look in the GoToWebinar control panel right now, you're going to see two handouts. They are both our learning plans for the Hydrants module. One is if you're an administrator, and the other is if you're a user. Distribute this as you see fit. All of our lesson plans are available here, and I just wanted to bring you in those two that pertain to the Hydrants module. Okay, let's go here. And so the flow test tab. So flow calculated versus volume at desired pressure. Okay, so here is how the description is. So instead of just my words, I'll show you. All right, so volume at desired pressure, the fifth bullet point here, the final hydrant flow. Units are gallons per minute, and the calculation is based off the following equation. So it looks like a lot, but even if you didn't have the system to calculate it for you, you could figure this out, because you're going to be capturing these data points. And so the system, you're capturing them, and so you're putting them into our system. We're just doing the math for you. Okay, and then flow, total flow measured during the test, is also in gallons per minute. And then one of the things I wanted to mention is, and again, this references NFPA 291, is that your desired pressure is typically 20 PSI. And so they reference, if it's less than, it should be noted on the hydrant, to overcome all the typical friction loss that is, that you're going to encounter between the hose and the pump and so forth. Does that help, Andrew? And if it doesn't, let me know, and we can always connect offline and I can go over it in a little more detail. But I wanted to put it up instead of just verbalizing it. I wanted everybody to see it as far as the data points and what's being collected and what's behind each of those points that goes into the calculations. Eric, is there a way to convert hydrant data that only has lat long coordinates to show, hold on, I gotta see the whole question. to show a more specific location? Yes. The way you want to do that, Eric, is this. Okay. So here in the demo account, all right. So you'll go to, say you've got the lat long, and you want to have a more specific location. So the lat long is as if you get good data there, you're going to be head and shoulders here above most, right? But fill from current location looks at the lat long that's entered and allows you to select an address and then pre-fill that address location. So the example from the deck I had showed earlier is right here. You click on that button, it will take your location based on the lat long entered and say, which address would you like to associate with this hydrant? Is that what you're looking for? And then Andrew, yes. My email is tom, at emergencyreporting.com. So just email me, Andrew, and we can connect later today. I've got another meeting after this, but I'll certainly reach out to you and we can work through that in a little more detail. Guys, any other questions? Like I said, we're trying something new in this summer boot camp to make them, like I said, shorter, sweeter, and stronger. And then just kind of give me some feedback. It can be right now, or it can be to my email. If you think this is good for you to do them in half-hour sessions versus the entire hour, we're trying to make topics that can be covered in a half an hour. I think we're able to do that fairly well today. And keep it in mind when you're out there doing flow testing based on NFPA 291, those data points are just a matter of entering it. And if at all possible, having them entered while you're out there. And again, duplication of effort, time has become more and more precious. We're being overwhelmed with so much data and so much expected of us in our agencies. You could take a tablet out there or your phone, and instead of writing everything down, you're doing the flow tests and enter it right there on the spot, and you're done. Go back to the station and maybe do some cleaning up if you need to, but a lot of this can be done once, one and done, I like to say, instead of, that duplication of effort that, sometimes we encounter when we're doing either paper or entering it one place and then entering it into another. Don't forget the import capabilities here, and don't forget considering granting access to your water company to, say, just the hydrants module. And again, today's focus was on NFPA 291 flow testing and marking of hydrants. And our hydrants module does a really good job adhering to and supporting that standard. Any other questions? All right, Sean, very welcome. You bet. Yeah, please, guys, let me know on feedback here on if you're liking these shorter sessions, or if you think some topics clearly require more, or we'll break them up into multiple sections. But again, in the interest of keeping everybody engaged for a shorter time period and respect your time so you can get on with your day, we're gonna be trying this out this summer. Okay, so we've got, and some prefer the hour, okay? So yeah, okay, good. So that's good feedback too. So we've got some that's like, yeah, good, get it in and get out, and then others are like, no, we need a little more in depth. So I want to take that into consideration, because I feel, and I know I like to talk a little bit here, but I like to have a conversation rather than a lecture. So even for me, it's hard to knock something like this out in a half an hour. So we'll take that under advisement, and if we need to split them up into multiple sessions, or we'll just go back to doing an hour. So please let us know your feedback. Shoot me an email, tom@emergencyreporting.com, and we'll absolutely be listening to what you guys want and how you want to get the most out of this. Okay, so Jason, good, some more questions coming down. Is the color coding of hydrant based on the 20 psi flow or the flow at the current pressure? So remember, it's GPM. And I goofed, guys. No, I didn't. Yeah, so here, this hydrant is 487. It's not calculating the color based on PSI. The PSI helps contribute to the end result, but it's calculating it based on the GPMs. Okay, so if you remember, move the question panel out of the way. If you remember here, we've got the GPM, and so the color reflects that GPM. Less than 5, red, less than 1,000, but greater than 501, orange, 1,500 green, greater than 1,500 blue. I hope that helped, Jason. So Lawrence, what flow do you use to mark the hydrant? Okay, should be this number right here, because it's going to reflect the test hydrant. This was the flow hydrant, this is the test hydrant. And so if I looked on their map, okay, 487, what color is that going to be? You guys know, it's going to be red. Okay. Robbie, thanks for your comment. Byron, you bet, you're very welcome. Greg, Greg Lopez, all right. I didn't see you initially when you came on, so Greg's out at Marine Corps Air Station, Yuma. So Greg, thanks for being here today and for your continued feedback and communication with us. So we're grateful to you for that. Will a hydrant, so from Leonard, guys, I know we're past the bottom of the hour, so of course I lied if we're gonna knock it out in a half an hour, but I don't leave until questions are answered. So I got one more here from Leonard. Will a hydrant placed out of service in ER show out of service in the Rover app? Excellent question. My understanding is, I'm both me and our training team, we're learning Rover. It is my understanding, because the data is pulled from emergency reporting, that yes, it will reflect out of service. Now, I will stand, if I find out otherwise, Leonard, I will let you know, but it's my understanding that yes, it should. Great. What else you guys got for me question-wise? Is there anything, those of you that ask questions, did I answer them to your satisfaction? Did you get what you needed out of the question, the answer to your question? And if not, just email me and I'll follow up with you. All right, well, thank you, everybody. With that, we'll see you next week. Let's see, what do we got next week? We got a couple more this month. And so let me go to that site. I didn't even have it up today. Oh, you're welcome, Lawrence. Good, good. All right, so what do we got next week? I know we have one on, the last one this month is going to be on our, an update on our business intelligence tool. Yes, this is a new one. So NFPA 1452. So we're always talking about commercial occupancies. We felt it was time to talk about residential occupancies and how you can manage and track that in emergency reporting if you choose to do so. Now, it may not be where you're going to have a residence for every an occupancy for every residence in the occupancy module, but I want to talk to you about what this standard states and how we support that. So yeah, next week. All right. George, hey, and George, Rio Rico Fire. George, I'm glad to have you on board. Okay, so this, George is just south of me, about 40 miles south of Tucson in Rio Rico, Arizona. So hey, George, good to have you here. Can this information be passed to First Due app that we are using? I think it can. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing, because all of our partners, they pull different things from our system. I do know that First Due does a killer job pulling data from our occupancy module. I just need to confirm if it pulls from our hydrants module as well. So let me make a note of that, George, and I will get back to you on it. I don't know exactly if they do that. So First Due hydrants. All right. That's all I got, everyone. Take care, be safe, keep up the good work during these very unprecedented times, and we'll see you next week when we talk community risk reduction for residential occupancies.